Tahong Simhoisu, as a young man, studied under No Susin, who had been exiled to a distant island in the sea. He followed his master there and diligently worked on the sacred books. He enrolled in 1570 and graduated in 1572. In 1589, he courageously remonstrated with King Sonjo regarding the disorders of his reign, successfully calming a major national disturbance. However, he once made a social blunder when he jokingly remarked to a friend, "These seagull waves ride so high, who can tame them?" This comment was seized upon by others, leading to his unpopularity as it seemed to criticize the court unfavorably. In 1592, during the Japanese invasion when the king fled to Uiju, Simhoisu served as the state's chief secretary. Upon the king's return, he was appointed chief justice. Despite attempting to resign multiple times, the king insisted he remain, stating, "I cannot do without you." Sim later became the head of the Literatai and a special advisor. He held positions as Minister of the Right and Minister of the Left, during which he presented 10 suggestions to the king. Observing injustices around the king, he resigned repeatedly but was consistently asked to return. In 1608, when Im Sukyong wrote an essay exposing the court's wrongdoings, Sim Hoisu protected him. The king, angered by the essay, initially ordered Im's punishment, but Sim intervened, declaring, "I stand by what he wrote, punish me instead," prompting the king to withdraw his anger. Sim Hoisu was known for his unwavering loyalty. In his old age, he lived humbly in Tunsan, residing in a modest hut like the poorest literatai. He referred to himself as Water Thunder Muddy Man, a name inspired by the Book of Changes. He passed away in 1622 at the age of 74, remembered as one of Korea's esteemed patriots. The story Minister Sim Hoisu in his youth was as handsome as polished marble and as pure as snow, exquisitely and uniquely formed. By the age of 8, he had already mastered the art of calligraphy, earning admiration and wonder from his people. His nickname was Sundong, the godlike one. After passing his initial examinations, he steadily advanced in his career until he ultimately became the first minister of the land. In his old age, he was revered as the most distinguished of all ministers. Even at 70, he remained in office. One day, while engaged in state affairs, he suddenly said to those around him, "Today is my last day on earth. My parting wish for you all is that you may thrive and perform your duties bravely and well." His colleagues, surprised, responded, "Your Excellency, you are still robust and capable of many more years of service. Why do you speak in this manner?" Sim replied with a smile, "Our lifespan is predetermined. Why should I not know? We cannot exceed the destined limit. Please do not feel regret. Dedicate yourselves to serving His Majesty the King and express your gratitude for his many favors." With these words, he bade them farewell and departed. Everyone was astonished by this unusual declaration. From that day on, he did not return, with rumors circulating that he was unwell. At that time, a young secretary working in the War Office directly under Sim heard about his master's illness. Concerned, the young man went to visit and inquire about his condition. Sim invited him into his private room, which was peaceful and quiet. He said, "I am about to die, and this is a final farewell. Take good care of yourself and fulfill your duties honorably." The young man noticed tears in Sim's eyes and said, "Your Excellency, you are still strong. Even though you might be slightly ill, there seems to be no serious cause for worry. I do not understand your tears or your statement about impending death. May I ask the reason?" Sim smiled and said, "I have never shared this with anyone, but since you ask and there is no need for further secrecy, I will tell you the whole story. When I was young, some events in my life might seem amusing to you now. At around 16 years old, I was known as a handsome and striking boy. Once in Seoul, during a banquet filled with many dancing girls and lively festivities, I attended with a half-dozen friends. Among the dancing girls was a young woman whose beauty was extraordinary. She did not seem like an earthly being, but rather an angelic figure. When I inquired about her name, those seated nearby told me she was called Tahong, Flower Bud. After everything ended and the guests had left, I went home, but Tahong's lovely face lingered in my thoughts. I kept recalling her repeatedly. It seemed I couldn't forget her. About 10 days later, as I was returning from my teacher's house along the main street with my books under my arm, I unexpectedly encountered a beautiful girl. She was elegantly dressed and riding a fine horse. She dismounted right in front of me and, to my surprise, took my hand, saying, "Aren't you Sim Huisu?" In my astonishment, I looked at her and realized it was Ta Hong. I replied, "Yes, but how do you know me?" At that time, I wasn't married and my hair wasn't yet done up. With many people around on the street, I felt very embarrassed. With a joyful expression, Ta Hong said to her attendant, "I have something to attend to now. You go back and tell the master that I'll be present at the banquet tomorrow." Then we stepped aside into a nearby house and sat down. She asked, "Didn't you visit Minister so-and-so's house on such and such a day and attend the gathering?" I answered, "Yes, I did." "I saw you," she said, "and to me your face was like that of a god. I asked those around who you were, and they said your surname was Sim and your given name Hui Su, and that your character and talents were exceptional. Since then, I've been longing to meet you, but it seemed impossible, so I could only think of you. Our meeting today must be fate." I laughed and replied, "I felt the same way about you." Ta Hong then said, "We can't talk here. Let's go to my aunt's house in the next district, where it's quiet." So we went to her aunt's house, which was tidy, secluded, and where her aunt treated her with motherly devotion. From that day onward, we pledged ourselves to each other. Ta Hong had never had a lover before. I was her first and only choice. She said, "But our plans cannot be realized today. Let's part for now and plan for our union in the future." I asked how we could do that, and she replied, "I've devoted myself to you forever, but you have to consider your parents, and you haven't chosen a wife yet. They won't agree to a wife of my status. Considering your abilities and future prospects, I can see you becoming a high-ranking official. Let's part for now, and I'll wait for you until you achieve first place in the exams and celebrate for 3 days. Then we can meet again. Let's make an unbreakable pact. So until you achieve your success, don't think about me, please. Don't worry about losing me either, as I have a plan to keep myself safe and hidden. Know that when you achieve your success, we will meet again." With a clasp of hands and words of farewell, we parted as if it were easy. I did not ask where she was going, but returned home with a heart heavy and distressed, feeling as though I had lost everything. On my arrival, I found my parents in a state of deep worry, having missed me. Yet they were so overjoyed at my safe return that they scarcely questioned where I had been. I offered them a different explanation instead. For a long time, I could not shake thoughts of Ta Hong. Only after much time passed did I regain my composure. From that moment, I dedicated myself entirely to my studies. Day and night I labored, not for the sake of passing the examinations, but in the hope of meeting her again. About 2 years later, my parents arranged my marriage. I dared not refuse and accepted, though my heart was not in it, and I found no joy in their choice. My aptitude for study was exceptional, and through diligence I surpassed all my peers. It was 5 years after bidding farewell to Ta Hong that I achieved academic honors. Though still young, I enjoyed the world's praise for my success. Yet, my true joy lay in the hope that the time to see Ta Hong again had arrived. On the first day of my graduation celebration, I eagerly awaited her, but she did not appear. The second day came and went with no sign of her, and as the third day was passing, still no word reached me. My heart was restless, and I found no pleasure in the honors I had received. As evening approached, my father said to me, "I have an old friend who lives in Changi Ward. You must visit him this evening before the 3 days of celebration are over." With no other choice, I went to make the call. On my return, the sun had set, and it was dark. As I passed by a high gateway, I heard the call of the Silai, a custom signaling a noble household. It was the home of an old minister, someone I did not know. Being a person of high status, I had to dismount and enter. Inside, I met the master, an elderly gentleman who first had me perform the customary courtesies, then invited me to sit beside him. He spoke kindly and offered me various refreshments. Lifting his glass, he asked, "Would you like to meet a very beautiful person?" Uncertain of his meaning, I inquired, "What beautiful person?" The old man replied, "The most beautiful person in the world to you. She has been part of my household for a long time." He then summoned a servant to call her. When she arrived, it was my lost Ta Hong. I was stunned, overjoyed, and almost speechless. "How are you here?" I asked in amazement. She laughed and said, Is this not within the 3 days of your public celebration, as we agreed upon our parting? The old man added, She is a remarkable woman with high and noble thoughts, Spazin. Her story is quite extraordinary. I am an old man of 80, and my wife and I have had no children. One day, this young girl came to us and asked, May I serve you as a slave, to wait on you and fulfill your needs? In surprise, I asked why she made this strange request. She replied, I am not fleeing from any master, so please do not mistrust me. Nevertheless, I hesitated to take her in and expressed my reluctance. However, she pleaded so persuasively that I relented and allowed her to stay. I assigned her tasks, observed her behavior, and she willingly became a servant, dedicated to pleasing us. She prepared our meals during the day, tended to our rooms at night, responded promptly to our calls, and eagerly fulfilled our requests. Her loyalty was unparalleled. As elderly individuals often ailing, she brought us unprecedented comfort and joy, making our lives peaceful and content. Her needlework was remarkably skilled, and she provided all our seasonal needs. Naturally, we grew to love and pity her deeply. My wife cherished her more than a mother cherishes a daughter. She was always by our side during the day and slept near us at night. At one point, I gently inquired about her past. She disclosed that she was originally the child of a freeman, but her parents had passed away when she was very young. Without a place to go, an elderly woman from the village took her in and raised her. Because of my youth, she explained, I was sheltered from harm. Eventually, she met a young master with whom she pledged her troth for 100 years, a handsome boy like no other. She resolved to reunite with him after he achieved honor in the arena. Feeling unsafe at her old home and fearful of losing her honor, she sought refuge with us to serve and protect herself. Her plan was to remain hidden for a year or so, then seek our permission to leave once he achieved his triumphs. Curious, I asked who this person was with whom she had made this pact. She revealed your name to me. Although I am too old to consider taking on wives or concubines, she referred to herself as my concubine to ensure her safety. Thus, the years passed. We anxiously followed the examination reports, but your name never appeared until now. Throughout it all, she showed no signs of anxiety, maintaining her optimism that your name would eventually emerge. Her confidence was unwavering, and not a trace of disappointment clouded her face. When I finally found your name on the list, I informed her. She received the news calmly, as if expecting it all along. When we parted, she recalled, I promised to meet him before the public celebrations ended within 3 days. Now I must fulfill my promise. She climbed to the upper pavilion to watch the procession, but being somewhat distant from the main path, she missed seeing you on the first and second days. This morning she returned, certain that you would pass by today. True to her belief, you did. He is coming, she declared. Bring him in. I am an elderly man, well-versed in history, familiar with stories of many extraordinary women. I have encountered numerous instances of loyalty and devotion that stir the heart, but none as faithful and devoted as hers. Recognizing her dedication, God has fulfilled all her aspirations. Now, to savor this moment of joy, you must stay with me tonight. When I first met Ta Hong, I was incredibly happy, especially upon hearing of her years of faithfulness. Regarding the invitation, I declined it, stating that I couldn't bring myself to take her away, even though we had agreed on it, considering she was attending to His Excellency. However, the old man laughed and said, She isn't mine. I simply let her be called my concubine in name to prevent my nephews or other younger clan members from taking her away. Above all, she is a faithful woman whom I have never seen the like of before. The old man then spat the horse and the servants, along with a letter to my parents informing them that I would be staying the night. He instructed the servants to prepare a room, set up beautiful screens and embroidered matting, hang up lights, and decorate as if for a bridegroom. Thus, he celebrated our meeting. The next morning, I bid farewell and went to tell my parents all about meeting Ta Hong and what had transpired. They agreed that I could marry her, and she was brought into our family, becoming my only wife. Her life and conduct surpassed the ordinary. She served those above her and assisted those below, fulfilling all the requirements of ancient principles. Her work was performed faithfully, and her talents in music and chess were exceptional. I loved her deeply, beyond words. A while later, I was appointed magistrate of Kyumsan County in Chula Province, and Ta Hong accompanied me there. We spent 2 years there together. She declined our frequent happy times together, citing interference with efficiency and duty. One day, unexpectedly, she approached me and requested a private moment, saying she had something important to tell me. I asked her what it was, and she said, "I am going to die, for my time is up. Let us be happy once more and forget all the world's sorrows." I was astonished to hear this. I couldn't believe it was true and asked her how she knew she was going to die. She replied, "I just know. There's no mistake." In 4 or 5 days, she fell ill, though not severely, and yet a day or two later, she passed away. As she lay dying, she said to me, "Our life is ordained by God. He decides everything. While I lived, I gave myself to you, and you responded with great kindness. I have no regrets. As I depart, I only ask that my body be buried where I can rest beside you when your time comes, so that in the afterlife we may be together once more." With these words, she breathed her last. Her face remained beautiful, unlike that of the deceased, but resembling that of the living. I was overwhelmed with grief and personally prepared her body for burial. According to our customs, a second wife is not interred with the family, but I made excuses and laid her to rest in our family plot in Koyang County, fulfilling her final wish. On my sorrowful journey, when I reached Kumchang, I composed a verse. "O beautiful bud of the beautiful flower, we bear your form upon the willow bier. Where has your sweet perfumed soul flown? The rains fall upon us to recount your tears and your faithful way." I wrote this as a tribute to my beloved Ta Hong. After her passing, whenever something significant was to occur in my household, she would appear beforehand in a vision, and her predictions never failed. This continued for several years until a few days ago when she appeared in a dream and said, "Master, your time to depart has arrived and we shall reunite. I am preparing for your joyous arrival." That is why I have bid farewell to all my associates. Last night she visited me once more in a dream and said, "Tomorrow is your day." In the dream, we met, talked, and wept together. When I awoke this morning, tear marks still adorned my cheeks. It is not because I fear death, but because I have seen Ta Hong again. Now that you have asked, I have shared everything with you. Do not speak of this to anyone. And so, as predicted, Sim passed away the following day. Truly a remarkable tale.